Hey, how you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. Are you a Christian?
Yes.
Awesome. How long have you been a Christian for?
Since I was born.
Okay, so you were raised this way.
Hmm?
So you were raised a Christian.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. And
But not like a good one, but yeah, I'm still Christian.
I got you. So what on the background would you like to talk about?
Religious. Oh, so I have to choose.
Yeah, I like
Oh,
to give people options.
okay. How can one be Christian but not pro-choice? It sounds like political, like Republican and Democrats. I don't know if that's good um
I'm talking
topic.
about it purely from a Christian perspective.
Well, not all Christian has s- is not represent the whole Christianity. So I don't know. It's just like uh, one Christian to another has different opinion about that pro-choice, pro-life thing. It's more like political.
And what is I wouldn't really say it's political. Do you not think that God has a position on abortion?
What do you mean?
So, do you think that the God that you worship and believe in, do you think that that God feels any particular way towards abortion?
Towards abortion?
Yeah, does he
Um,
like it? Does he not like it? Does he not care that people do it? Like, what are his feelings about it? What do you think?
like abortion, in what way though? It has to be more specific. Like, of course, killing is not allowed, but I mean like in what condition? Because sometimes when someone needs to abort because of the health concerns, that it could be happen. But usually if the fetus is like less than it's not fully developed. I think that's what happened on the abortion. It's not like 8 months pregnant and then aborted. It's I never seen that never heard of that thing happened.
Yeah, no, I agree. All right, so
Go.
it doesn't seem like you have too much of a position on this one. Do you have a different background topic you'd like to look at?
Let me see. Why does God allow slavery? I don't think God endorsed slavery, but it's already happened. It happened. Is not endorsed by God, obviously, but when it's happened, God helped how to like what you should do or what you should not do to be uh, more human, to make and I believe I heard that at that time slave was like made, and God told them to make them more human, like they
So I
deserve.
would actually disagree. I think that there are passages in the Bible where we can see that when God
Oh,
is speaking,
show me the verse that God endorsed slavery. You shall do slavery to these people.
yeah, I can show you the verse where God allows slavery in His law. It's in
Okay.
Leviticus 25:44 through 46. Do you have a Bible with you?
No, you can just read it to me.
You don't have a Bible? What Bible do you use? Do you have a specific like
I'm with
translation
my phone right
that
now.
you look at?
I'm in
Like,
my car. I'm in my car right now, chilling with my phone. I don't have Bible with me the whole time.
oh, that's crazy. I do.
Oh, you have
Anyway,
Bible in your car?
yes, I actually I take
Oh, you're
I
a
have a
good
Bible in my car.
Christian.
No, I'm not a good Christian.
Great.
I just want to make sure that I'm ready to
Wow,
have the
praise
resources
God.
with me.
Yes, keep up the good work, bro.
So Leviticus 25:44 through 46. Do you care the
Yeah,
translation or the
he's a
version?
good Christian. He bring his
Do you
Bible in the
care
car
for
the
the
whole time.
version?
What?
Do you care about the version? I have the NRSV. Is that fine for you?
Oh, King James version.
You use the King James.
Oh, how many version you have?
On
Oh,
me physically, I have four, but I also have my phone, which has the Bible app, and I've got
oh,
lots
what
more on there.
denomination are you?
I'm not a Christian, so no
Oh, you're not a
denomination.
Christian. You're just a Christian
So
bullier.
I'm sorry. Do you want me to actually show you where this is from, or
But what
are
are
you
you
trying
though?
to?
We need to know. Like, are you
I'm an
atheist or
agnostic
Muslim?
atheist.
Are you atheist? You don't believe in God at all, but you come up on TikTok to just to mocking on the Christian, right?
I'm sorry. How am I mocking?
Yeah, you bring up something that is not even your faith
So
and trying to mock people come up to you on TikTok and just do this
urgent.
to make them in
Can
the
you give me one
corner, to
example?
mocking
Can you give me
them,
one example of how I've
to
mocked you
make
for
them
your faith?
heartbroken, to make me mad. Obviously, this is what you do,
Are
atheist.
okay. So I'm sorry that you've passed your judgment
Why
already.
don't you bring your own faith as an
Are you
atheist?
interested in having this conversation or no?
Oh, sure, absolutely. I want to know what the way
Okay.
you're
All right.
thinking.
So
It's
Leviticus
funny, right?
25, 44 through 46 says, "As for your male and female slaves, whom you may have, it is from the nations around you that you may acquire male and female slaves. You may also acquire them from the alien residing among you, and their families who are born with you, who have been born in your land. They may be your property. You may keep them as a possession for your children to inherit after you, for them to inherit as property, and these you may treat as slaves. But your fellow Hebrew Israelites, no one shall rule over one another with harshness." So this is from the mouth of God. This is
What
God
does it again?
speaking.
What does it say again at the end? Slowly.
Uh, the last verse, verse 46. You may
Yes.
keep
Say
them.
it slowly.
You may keep them as a
Mhm.
possession
Uh
for
huh.
your children after you, for
Uh
them to
huh.
inherit as property.
Uh huh.
These you may treat as slaves.
Uh huh.
But as for your fellow Israelites,
But what? But what?
but as for your fellow Israelites,
Uh huh.
no one shall rule over one
Uh huh.
another with
No
harshness.
one shall rule what?
Over one another with harshness. What? I'm sorry. Let me ask you
With
real
what?
quick.
With what? With what? I'm sorry. With what?
I've said it 4 times already.
I'm so
What do
sorry.
you
With what?
think?
I
What do
think
you
I'm deaf.
think
With
your
what?
point is here?
With what?
With harshness. Are you hard of hearing?
Not with. Yes, I am.
Okay. So now, what do you think your
With
point is with this?
no harshness, right? Oh my gosh. What kind of slavery is that? Very soft and gentle.
Because your fellow Israelites were not supposed to be slaves. The slaves you could have were non-Israelites.
Oh, okay.
So the
So it
protections
happened.
were for your
So it
fellow
happened.
Israelites, not for the non-Israelites. So
So it happened.
if you were Hebrew, you could not have another Hebrew as a slave. You could have a non-Hebrew as a slave.
So it's not just everybody, huh?
When did
You
I
can
ever
just
say everybody?
it's not saying that everybody can be your slave. Just take anyone you like
I
and
never said that.
take them as their self. Oh, no one said that.
No, I never
No
said
one said
that.
that before. So what is it? Is it like a tradition? It's something happened on them
Well,
on
if you
in
can
their
read the
generation
screen, if you can
before?
read the screen, it says the Bible God allows slavery in His law. Why? So if this God is supposed to be good and just,
Is it in
why
his
would He
law?
allow something like
Is it
slavery?
law? Is it law?
Yes, yes.
Does it say law?
These are His laws.
Oh, where is it? What does it say is law?
Exodus, Leviticus, and Deuteronomy are filled with God giving 613 laws to His people on how they ought live and how they ought operate.
How they what?
How they ought live and how they ought operate.
Okay, so there's a regulation for that, right? Right? It's not just like a jungle. You do whatever you do.
Yes, and He allows slavery for non-Israelites. Why?
So it's something that
Hey,
already
Biblical.
happened. It happened, and God helped to regulate it, right?
Why didn't God just say don't do it?
That's why there's no there. That's why there's Christian believe in choices, freedom, free of choices.
Oh,
Oh, you're not a
no,
Christian, so
I'm
you don't
sorry.
believe in those
No,
methods. I'm
that
sorry.
has nothing to do with what I asked. Why did God not just simply say don't have slaves?
Because it's already happened, bro.
So what? Adultery was already happening, and God said don't do that. Idol worship was already happening. God said don't do that. But all of a sudden, slavery is already
But you
happening.
see
So
those.
God is so
But you have
helpless
to
that He
know
has to let
that
them have it. You're
God
making a
telling
really
them with
bad argument for your God.
that regulations. It's not just go ahead and slave people, whatever you want, do whatever you like, do whatever you want, just make them as an animal. Not like that, right?
They were seen as legal property.
Right?
They were seen as legal
Agree with
property of
me?
another individual.
But do they treat them as an animal?
They don't have
Do
as
they
much
still give them
protections,
food
and
to
they
eat?
don't have as much
Do they give
protections
him?
and
Do
equal
they give
rights.
a good place to live?
I don't know. That would
You don't
probably
know.
be
So you
that would
don't have
probably be
information.
individual.
You don't have much information to talk about.
The information that we have,
All you
urgent,
think is just negativity
urgent.
about
Please
God because you hate God.
calm
You don't
down.
believe in God. You don't have faith at all.
Calm down. I need you to calm
You need
down.
to calm down and realize what you do
I
here
need you to
is
calm down, buddy.
nasty,
Buddy, I
disgusting
need you to calm
atheist.
down.
You know that?
So what we can clearly see here is that the context is God is saying people can
Well,
own people as
the main
property,
problem is
and
that
that is called
you, as an
slavery.
atheist who
And
doesn't believe in
so I
God, trying to make people become
urgent.
one
You're either
of
gonna
become
calm
like
down and
you.
have a conversation with me, or I'm gonna move on.
No, I have to school you, bro. You're too naive.
You're not
How
schooling
old
me.
are you?
All you're doing is throwing insults and trying to avoid the
Because you
actual
are
topic.
deserve to be insulted. That's the reason.
For reading the Bible and telling you what it
No,
says.
for become an
Wow,
atheist who reject God as your
I didn't
salvation.
reject God. I don't know if
You
there's a
reject God.
God to
You don't
reject or
believe in
accept.
any higher power at all. When you die, you just die and become dust. That's it.
So go ahead and
You don't
school me.
have any
How
hope
are you
to for
schooling me?
eternal life at all.
How are you schooling me?
Bro,
Give
how
me
sad is that?
tell me say
You
something
don't
of
have
substance.
any
Otherwise, I'm gonna move
you don't
on.
have
You're
any
not giving
you
me
don't have
anything, buddy.
anything but die.
All right,
That's it.
you got 10 seconds
I
to
hope you're not gonna be banned because I'm
you have
saying
10
things about
seconds to show
unalive,
me that you're
kill,
worth more of my
killing,
time.
slavery. See, this is the greatness about America. You can say whatever you say, whatever you want to say. It's freedom of speech, bro. It's freedom of speech. Praise God about that. No more slavery, right? Oh, wait, the same God from the Bible, and the same God is now the same. But there's no more slavery right now. What's going on? He changed his mind or what?
What do you mean there's no
What do you
more
think?
slavery? There's slavery in the world.
Oh, where? Is it here in the United States? Tell me, which states?
There is slavery active in all parts of the world, including the
Yeah,
United
tell
States.
me.
Depending on where
Okay,
you
show
are,
me.
it's legal or illegal.
Oh, which one? Which
But
one?
to say that
No,
slavery doesn't
bro,
exist anymore
just
is a
don't just
complete
say
lie.
things. Just tell me which country.
Are you honestly? Do you know what sex trafficking is?
I know
That's
sex
slavery.
trafficking is.
That's
Oh,
slavery.
that's slavery. Okay, that happened.
That is
God,
one form of slavery. And so you're saying that slavery doesn't
so
exist. So you're saying that sex
according to
trafficking doesn't
you,
exist.
from the one who doesn't believe in God, what God should do about that?
If God exists, God should intervene.
But unfortunately, according to you, God is not exist. So what is your problem here?
Oh, when it comes from a God perspective, nothing. I think we as humans need to do better, and I advocate for
Exactly.
that.
So do your own thing, bro. You don't believe in God, so don't bother about it.
Okay,
Right?
and there are people who do believe in God, and I like to have these conversations with them.
You're still talking
What is wrong with
about God.
me? What's
You're
wrong with
crazy
me
about
having
it,
these
but you don't
conversations,
believe in
buddy?
Him at all. But here
Why
you
does
are
it offend you?
discuss
Why does it
discuss
offend you
about
so
God,
much that I have these
knowing that you don't
conversations?
believe in God at all. That's crazy, bro.
Why does it offend you that I have these conversations?
No, because the way you're thinking is unbelievable. I think you are brainwashed by something. I believe so. Yeah.
Okay,
How old are you, by the way?
you can have your opinions, but you don't know anything about me.
I can have my opinions, whatever I want, of course. Once again, it's freedom of speech, bro. So how old are you?
Why does that matter? What's the relevance?
It is matter to me, bro, because
How
the
old are
way you think
you?
is like less than 18 years old, probably.
How old are you?
I'm 39 years old.
You're
How old are
39
you?
years old, and this is how you're acting?
Well, this is
Shame
how I
on
act
you.
into a guy who doesn't understand anything at all. How old are you? You haven't
Really,
answered my
you're the
question.
one that said slavery doesn't exist today, and you're the one that refuses to acknowledge what the Bible says, and you don't have
Yeah,
basic
but
reading comprehension skills to understand 3 verses.
yeah,
So you're trying
but
to say
in
that
the
I don't know anything? Come on, man.
yeah, you don't know anything. You
All
don't
right.
believe in
Well,
God.
thank
You're
you
an
for your time.
atheist. What is your how
All right. Um, I think. Let's go here. All right. I don't know if King is going to connect or not. Yeah, I'm 30, so again, I don't know what the relevance is for my age, but whatever. Um, all right, I think King is not here with us anymore. Hey, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I'm having trouble hearing you. You sound far away.
Come at me. Is that better at all?
Yeah, this is definitely a little bit better. Awesome.
Okay, great.
You're still a little bit soft, but I can at least hear you.
Okay, sorry.
So are you a Christian?
I am, yes.
Awesome. How long have you been a Christian for?
My whole life.
Okay, sweet. Do you like lean towards any specific denomination, or are you more like just non-denominational relationship with God type of Christian?
No, I am Catholic.
Okay, all right, I got you. And what on the background would you like to talk about?
Really anything. I don't really mind. I guess number three is really interesting. I think
Yeah, for
the
sure. What
evidence.
What do you think is the best evidence to say that the resurrection of Jesus actually happened?
I think the best evidence for the resurrection of Jesus is probably the martyrs.
Peter and Paul.
Just like any of the early church martyrs. The fact that in the early church, people were being killed for saying that Jesus was God and that He resurrected, because there were people um, who believed, that it was kind of like a ruse, that it was fake, that they stole his body, and that they were lying, and that was something that was going around in the early church, and the followers of Jesus, kind of doubled down and were like, no, that's not what we're saying. He actually did rise from the dead. Like, we're not speaking allegorically. We're not we're not trying to use florid fancy words. And then they were killed for it, and to their death they didn't recount. And I think that's pretty bold. If you're lying about it, faking about it, um, that you would die for it.
So, from my understanding, and there are Christian PhD holders like Sean McDowell and papers written at Biola University that show that as far as the actual historical evidence that we have for the quote unquote eyewitness martyrs of the resurrection of Jesus, it was Paul and Peter and maybe James that we can kind of have evidence to say that it happened. So we're really only talking about a couple of guys, and I have no problem thinking that a couple of guys truly believe that they saw something. And they convinced other people through their teachings and through their shared testimonies. And then those people who were not eyewitnesses that were still willing to die for something they believed in, I think that, yeah, they probably did in fact believe it. But I don't see dying for something you believe in to have any type of, credibility to what that statement is, not without actual evidence to back it up.
Okay. Um,
Does that make sense where I'm coming from?
no, I mean, it does make sense. I mean, I think, like, I mean, maybe not going as far as dying for something. I mean, personally, as a Christian, and I would say most Christians would hold very strong convictions about the reality of the resurrection. And we probably would like to think that we would die, if questioned about our true faith in it. But hopefully I'm never questioned about that. Um, but I think the evidentialist kind of like philosophy of, like, if I'll believe something if I see the evidence firsthand of it. It's like, well, that's is that that's nice on paper, but that's really not how anyone truly lives their life. I mean, there's a lot of things that we don't physically observe or experience, physically observe, like, empirically, right? Like, we don't have, like, empirical data, personal empirical data, right? And we still, take things as truth, and for grant, as truth, um, like, every single day.
Oh,
And so, I mean,
I 100% agree with you, but I think that the way we do it, or at least the way that our brain does it, is that it files it basically in order of priority to, what we find important. So if my coworker told me like, oh, our boss said that we can't use, the this equipment for the weekend because the machine has to be repaired, and then I find out that we can't use that equipment because the entire thing just broke down. We're getting a whole new other thing. There's no repair. It's just something else. It doesn't really matter to me one way or another, which is correct. And it doesn't really take a lot for me to be like, okay, I believe you. That's fine, whatever. But if you're trying to tell me something like super important, like, the doctor comes in and says, you have cancer, and then doesn't show me any scans, doesn't show me anything, I'm saying that I would like to go and see a specialist, but they're not giving me anything that shows that I have cancer, suddenly, I do have that resistance where I say, I need more evidence, I need something to show me this is what I have, and that way I can actually, act on it. So it really depends on the level of priority and importance, I think, for the individual. And I think that if you want people to really to really see this as one of the biggest decisions they'll ever make in their life, accepting God or not, then it is completely valid for us to say we need to be certain.
I mean, I do know in Scripture, um, that after the resurrection, um, the in the Gospels, like the transfiguration of Christ. I mean, like it says that his disciples were present. I mean, I don't know. I would have to find exactly where it's at, but I don't know. I mean, I know that we have, um, at the I know, what is it, like Peter, James, and John that go up the mountain with him, but there were there were other disciples present that stayed, at the bottom of the hill. I mean, like he appeared to his disciples in the upper room with Thomas and all of the apostles, like doubting Thomas feeling the inside of Christ in the wound. So I mean, like there were more than just three people who did physically witness Christ. I mean, like we have that, like we see that written in the Gospels, and after the crucifixion, after the resurrection, and then that goes on. You have the two men, the road to Damascus, or sorry, the road to Emmaus. So it's like we speculate as to who those two men were, as but it's like I don't know if they're ever named. I mean, so I mean, I think there is evidence to say that there were more people than just three that did see the resurrected Lord. Again, I would have to look and see that.
Well, the claim would be that we only have evidence that two or three people died for this claim that we could show were in that ring of eyewitnesses. All the other claimed eyewitnesses, like, yeah, we agree that the story says they were there, but we don't have any evidence that they were there. We don't have any evidence that they actually died for this claim or this faith of the resurrection. Maybe, possibly, but when it comes to what we have actual evidence for and what we don't, we can only for certain say Peter and Paul, and then maybe James. Everyone else is more of like a story, and stuff like that, until we can show otherwise. But yeah, as far as like the Gospels themselves, since we know that they are written anonymous, and even Luke says that he's compiling this together from the things that he heard their things from the eyewitnesses. So we know that Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John telling the experiences of what these people saw and claimed, these aren't by them. These are not firsthand accounts. So we do have a lot of questions.
I mean, I do think that, I mean, to die for belief in Christ, though, I mean, like you're dying for the truth of the resurrection. I mean, like to because I mean that's kind of the key piece is the resurrection. So I mean, to say that the early martyrs weren't killed because of their belief in the resurrection. I mean, now I understand what you're saying. Well, I will go back, because you did say that they did die for their belief. So I will go back and retract that, because You did make it clear that their belief is what they died for.
Yeah,
Um,
I
yeah.
completely have no issue accepting that these people probably did in fact believe what what they said they believed. I don't think that they should have been, executed for that. Obviously, I think that that's absolutely a ridiculous reaction to people just having a different belief. But someone brought up a great point. Like, we have stories, even just on a smaller scale. We have cults that have deaths in the hundreds of people who died because they were killed or because they off themselves because of the beliefs that they had. Some people truly believed in their leader that their leader was an alien and that they were going to get abducted at this certain time when this comet came through. There are hundreds of people with Jim Jones that literally drank the spiked Kool-Aid and stuff like that, and slaughtered their
Yeah.
own children, all for the belief that they had. I believe that, or I understand that what people's sincerely held beliefs, especially like when it comes to religious and things like that, things that they hold on faith, can really, I think, heighten the willpower that person has to endure whatever it is they're enduring.
Yeah, I agree.
So do you see why
Um,
maybe, like, for me, simply dying for what you believe in, like, it doesn't, like, well, I think it's horrible that you shouldn't have been unalive simply for what you believe. I don't think that that's sufficient for us to say, therefore, what they're saying must be true.
yes, no, I mean, I definitely hear what you're saying, and I do see that, yes, that is not a perfect way to show the truth of a statement or truth of a belief, that you're willing to die for something, because yes, people have died for things that, for what I would say are terrible things, like you brought up Jim Jones, and like yes, um, yeah. So if you want, we can look at another one of the statements.
Yeah, sure. I wanted to thank you for sharing your perspective on this. But yeah, you go ahead and pick another one if you'd like.
I like. Okay, let's go to number four. How can someone be Christian and pro-choice?
All right, for
Or
sure.
wait, or what was it?
And
How
not
can one
pro-choice.
be and not pro-choice? So I always like to, whenever I have any conversation with someone about pro-life or pro-choice, I always say that everyone has a choice. Um, like that's not, I mean, everyone has a choice in life. Um, I think the um, stance of someone who, so like we have these labels: pro-life, pro-choice. Everyone has a choice, right? And I think the position of,
Thank you, biblical.
well, yes, we do what we can. Um, but I think, the side of Christians, it's like taking this, yes, we side with a pro-life side. I would say 9 times out of 10 is because it's looking at this, the sanctity of human life. It's like that. That is what I think. That is what the Christian position is, highlighting the sanctity of human life from conception to natural death, and that, you know and that can, you mean, you can look at it as a theological viewpoint, but I think ultimately it's a philosophical conversation that is had. Um, and I think that, I think that's why, the Christian position is a pro-life, because there was never a reason.
Oh no, what happened? He just vanished. He got raptured. Oh man. Huh, that was strange. Maybe his phone died or something, or whatever the case is. Usually if you get a call or something, it'll, like, you know, give him the little coffee cup or whatever and stuff, but what up, Emerald? I don't know who you are. You want to chat? Are you a Christian? If you're a Christian, send in a request. Thank you, Biblical. Thank you. I appreciate it. All right. Well, we'll wait for other people. In the meantime, it means a lot to me that you guys are here. I appreciate it a lot. If you do have a moment, I have a backup TikTok. Instead of atheistic preacher, it's atheist preacher. My YouTube is atheistic preacher, but with the in front of it, so the atheistic preacher. And then I also made a lemonade because people think that TikTok's going to go away, but that lemonade is going to get the features that TikTok is going to have. So if they do, cool. We may as well establish a presence on there, so you can follow me there at atheistic preacher as well. And if you would like to help the support of my online presence and the growth of my YouTube, my Cash App and my Venmo are in the bio. I want to do like some book reviews, and I want to read the Bible chapter by chapter and go through it more in a deeper, more detailed, time and stuff. Nothing rushed. All right, we got him back. We got him back. Hey, hey. Oh, no, he's gone? We were there and then we weren't.
Am I here?
You're a little soft again. I think I heard you, but
Okay, am I here now?
you're still a little soft. I can hear you, but
Okay, I will try to speak up. I'm not sure
hmm.
what happened there.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure. You just kind of disappeared, but yeah, you are kind of soft. So like I said, I'll do my best to listen. Bear with me if I miss something here or there, and we'll do our best. Okay.
Okay, yep, no, I'm sorry. That's probably something on my end.
Nah, it's okay. Are you connected to something like a Bluetooth or a speaker or something?
I'm not. That might be
That's
the
that's strange. But so yeah, so I guess for my position on this, and maybe this will help make a little more sense, at least for where I'm coming from. When I say how can one be Christian but not pro-choice, and when I say this, I'm talking more to the Christians that believe that God gave us free will. Because from my perspective, I don't think free will is biblical. I have run into some Christians that also agree that free will is not biblical, but I understand the majority of Christians think that it is. So if God has gifted people the choice, then I think that the only logical thing for a Christian to do is to warn and give as much other options as they can to people that may end up getting abortions, but they should do nothing to actually interfere with them making the choice to get the abortion. If there shouldn't be any protest to block them from entering Planned Parenthood. There shouldn't be any type of, social shaming for women that have had abortions or anything like that. And there shouldn't be any type of action taken in a legislative way to prevent women from having the choice to do this. I think that is one point that I can make for this. Another point that I can make for this is that I think it's strange to, take it from the position that God would not like abortion because it's taking away life from a child, when we see that God takes life from children all the time throughout the Bible, either by his own hand or by ordering his people to do it for him. And then my last point is that we do see passages like Numbers 5, where we see a ritual that involves testing to see if a woman has been unfaithful to her husband or not, and if she has, and if she's quote unquote found guilty, she basically receives this curse of barrenness. And the way that we understand how biology works is that if she did cheat on her husband, or even if she had her husband's baby, if conception had already happened, there would have been a fetus. And if she somehow ended up with a curse to become barren, then that means that fetus must be terminated in order for her to then be barren. Otherwise, she'd be pregnant. So I think looking at these 3 points, I think my question is that I don't know how you can say you're a Christian but be pro-life or anything like that. You'd have to be pro-choice and say, well, I would prefer that no one have an abortion, and I will do my best to provide all the alternatives. I will do nothing to prevent this from happening.
Sure, I hear what you're saying. I hope you can hear me well. I'm gonna try to speak very loud and clearly for you. I, I've followed everything that you've said, and until you got to, it's like, yes, I think that as Christians we should support women who find themselves in a very difficult situation. I think there needs to be far more resources and people there to help um, women and men. Just people who are maybe not ready for to start a family for whatever reason, whether it be financial or whatever reason, just like to be there for them. Um, However, I do one thing that you said is like you don't think that it is the role of the government to have any type of policy. I would say that that is the role of government. Um,
Well, I didn't say that for the government. What I said is I don't think Christians should take any action legislatively to prevent people from having this choice. I don't think Christians should vote to make anti-abortion laws or something like that to that effect, because if Christians want to value the fact that God gave free will to the people and it is the people's choice and only God is going to judge you individually for the things that you did, then you have to at least allow for the choice to be there, even if you don't agree with the choice.
I mean, I would have to disagree because I mean, would you say that a Christian would? Well, one, would you say a Christian is okay with law and order?
If it's what's the word I'm looking at? Compatible with God's law, yes. But if it's
Okay,
not, then
so
no.
so if just for the sake of this argument, if you view abortion as taking the life of an innocent, taking an innocent life, which we would say is murder, that would go against God's law, right?
I normally I would say yes, but I am hesitant when we see passages where we see that he does not seem to value the lives of children.
I think we can totally, maybe come back to that and look at that. I'm thinking of passages I would imagine primarily in the Old Testament, and I think that just maybe comes with some like scripture reading, and we can totally look at that. I do want to just look at like just kind of talk more about the role that like Christians have in society and like or just anyone, just people in general have in society of creating a like healthy, just, safe society with laws and orders. And I also think there is objective truth, and with objective truth is like there is objective right and wrong, and so that gives us the ability to create laws and say yes, this is good and this is bad. And because of that, you know to be able to say, to be able to pass legislation that says no, you cannot take the life of your child for any reason, that this is not something that you are able to do. I don't think it's saying, oh, we're going to, it's not eliminating the choice because I don't want you to have free will. It's eliminating the choice, just like it's eliminating the choice on the grounds of this is something that should be like unimaginable. Like this is not something that you should even this shouldn't be an option. Like a Christian would say, here is, you have free will to choose, right and wrong, but I'm not going to give you the avenue to do this wrong thing. I'm not going to allow a, I'm not going to allow uh, a building to be built where you can do this wrong thing. All right, give me 1 second. I'm going to have to mute, and there's someone at my front door, so I'll be right back.
Okay. Hey, biblical. How well are you with hearing him? He's a little soft for me, but I'm able to understand what he's saying. Are you able to as a guest down there? And yeah, I do want to bring up Exodus 21 specifically because we're talking about the hitting the pregnant woman, right? And saying that if if it causes the baby to come out and no further harm is done, it's just a fine. We went through. I had to turn him up, but yes, I can hear him. All right, cool, great. Yeah, because from my understanding, there is no verification that the child is alive when it comes out. It's just it came out, and then depending on how developed it is, very clearly we can say that at a certain point, if it comes out, it's not surviving.
I am back.
All right, awesome. Good to have you back. Is everything okay?
Yep, everything's good.
Perfect. I know that you were in the middle of talking. Did you want to continue, or did you want me to respond?
You can go ahead and respond. I'm pretty sure I was at a good stopping point, I think. I don't know. I guess I'll find out.
Okay. Yeah. So I think that definitely that Christians are like. Okay. So you said you were talking about objective truths and things like that. I want to ask you from a Christian standpoint. So for you to answer, is it an objective fact that offing children is wrong?
Yes.
In all cases, across the board, it's objective.
I would say objectively, the intentional ending of a human life is wrong.
I'm so sorry, man. You I think you got softer. I can't
Yes.
quite hear you. Hello?
Hello? Yes?
Here, Nick, how about let's try this. I'll drop you, send me another request, and let's see if that'll fix our volume issue.
Okay.
All right. I'm going to drop you. All right. Let's let him send in a request again. I know that the first time that he went up, we were able to get it down pretty well. So hopefully this next time the volume will fix itself. Wow, the loaded questions. Well, hey, you know what, Wonder? You haven't been here for the context of the rest of the conversation and how we got here. So maybe don't judge till you have all the facts. I know you like to do that, but just relax, okay? Calm down. All right, let's see. All right, hello?
Hello?
You're still a little soft, but definitely better than the last time that that we were talking. So let's see where we can go. So I asked you a question that from a Christian perspective, do you believe that in every instance offering children is wrong?
Yes.
So then why is it that we can find examples in the Bible where God tells people to do it or he does it himself? It's clearly, I think, then subjective, no?
I would say that the instances in the Bible are a type of, you have to read the scripture in a different way, not as God directly saying this to the people, but as the overall, like, what is this overall story telling us, and like telling the people of God. Like, I would like, can you give me a specific
Oh wow, there you go.
example?
I don't know what just happened, but you were suddenly like 10 times louder. So that's great. That means that our conversation will be so much better. But if you did something just now, whatever it is, it fixed the issue. So.
Okay, I'm not sure what
Oh
I did.
damn it! Nope, it just went away. Ah, you were so loud for a moment. Anyway, I'm so sorry to cut you off. I was just hoping that if you had changed something, that you would remember what that was. But
Yeah, I'm working on changing it. I'm working on fixing whatever the problem is. I'm working
yes,
on it.
now it is. Now it's good. Now it's good.
Okay.
Damn it! Now it went away. Are you like going in between something, or
I have no idea.
are you maybe covering up your mic somehow? Are you moving the phone around or something?
I didn't think so.
All right. Well, if you come in a little clearer at some points than others, it's okay. We'll just do our best to continue on. So do you think that these stories are just like kind of parables, that they didn't actually happen? They're like little moral stories for us to like take lessons from?
I think some of them are stories that tell us about God's relationship with the Israelite people. Um, so I think, in some sense of what you're saying, yes, they are stories that tell us about God's relationship to the Israelite people, to his people. So whenever he says, "Go into this neighboring land and take control of these people and engage with them in war," it's like you could read that and say, "Oh my goodness, like God is all for war and killing people and pillaging." And I mean, whenever you have like the total ban, and it's like kill everything, kill the goats, and I mean just destroy everything. We would read that and be completely like appalled. But you read it, or how I would say, what we need to read this as is like God is completely on the side of his people. God is the strength of his people. Because God is on our side, because we have our faith in God, we will win this battle. Like that is like we need to take that from it, and so like that is like the lesson that comes from these. Like I mean, a lot of these stories are like oral traditions and oral stories of these nomadic tribes, this nomadic people that go from land to land, and they're telling their children these stories. So I think that's kind of an important thing to when we read these scriptures to kind of read it in that way, um, because if not, it's it's so easy to point out the contradictions that we see in God. And it's like, well, if God is unchanging, if God is this great unchanging God, then how can this be?
Okay, so you're saying that definitely some of them were these like more parable type of moral lessons for us to get from, especially because these are oral stories that we get from ancient Israel and things like that. I can see that for some of them, but let's talk about a couple specific examples. In Second Samuel 12, we see that God unalives the child of David and Bathsheba as a punishment because of what David did with Bathsheba. Do you think that that is a parable, or do you think that that really happened?
Is it, I mean, is it possible that that child died? Yes. I mean, infant mortality is very likely. Is it possible that that was perceived as God killing that child because of that situation? Yeah, and I think that tells a story. I think that teaches something about right relationship, right?
So you're trying to say that the events actually happened, but the interpretation that it was God who did this is a parable?
I think that is an appropriate reading of that scripture. Yes, to say that, you know, you know, yes, battles happened, but you know, to say that um, God directly spoke to the Israelite people and said, "Go and kill these children," is can we say that about God? And I think that's where reason, like a reason in what we know about God. It's like we do have to take a broad look at. We have to take a broad look at what we believe about God, and kind of zoom out and say, of all of the history of Judaism, Christianity, what is it that we believe about God? What have we learned? And then to say, okay, then that tells us how that kind of tells us how we need to look at this.
So I guess I'm wondering how much of Like, when you're reading this passage, how is it that you can tell which part of it is supposed to be a parable and which part of it is supposed to be taken as, yeah, that probably did or did in fact happen? And when we read this in the Bible, are you taking this to mean that the Bible isn't 100% accurate? It's just up to interpretation?
Well, first, can you remind me of the passage that you were talking about?
Yeah, so the one I'm talking about is in 2 Samuel chapter 12. It's where Nathan comes in and tells David the story, of like, oh, there was a rich man and he had a lot of sheep, and then there was a poor man and he only had one sheep, and then the rich man had a guest, and instead of using one of his own sheep to prepare a meal for his guest, he ended up stealing the sheep from the poor man and served that to his guest. And David thought that that was absolutely, unjust, and was angry about it, and was like, bring the rich man to me. I will, punish him for what he did to this poor man. And Nathan was like, oh, that's you, because you took the wife of Uriah and then, offed him, and now look at what's happening. And so David repented right then and there for what he did. He got called out, and he's like, you're right, I did a bad thing. And so then Nathan tells him, since you repented, God isn't going to do anything against you. Instead, what's going to happen is that your son that's going to be born from you and Bathsheba will be deleted. And then your wives are going to be assaulted. And we see that both things come true. And it says in, I believe, verse 15, it says that the Lord struck the child, and the child became ill, and then the child died after 7 days. So it very clearly, according to the Bible text, is saying that God did this action. God is the one who made sure that this child would, through the course of a week, suffer until he died. And then later on, I believe in chapter 16, we see that David's wives are assaulted, none other by his own son, which is crazy. But both fulfill the punishments that God gave not to David, but to the people around him for David's action.
Yeah, so I'm looking at it here too, and I think well, I know. So I'm looking at NIV.
Yeah, I'm looking at the NRSV,
Okay.
the updated edition.
Yeah, that's normally what I have. I just grabbed what was close by.
No, I understand completely. I've got several Bibles too, so sometimes you gotta work with what's closest.
Yeah.
But I go through this chapter, and I what I see is, when we're talking about what's a parable and what isn't, I think from a biblical perspective, very clearly the parable is the rich man and the poor man and the sheep issue. Everything else about the chapter, though, is supposed to be a literal thing of what is supposedly happening at the time, which means that when it says that the Lord struck the child, and the child became ill and then died after 7 days, that this was an action that God did to take the life of a child.
Yeah. So when I read this, definitely what is jumping out at me is, David is um, David is the image of, like, the leader of the people of Israel. And so I know even in this translation that I'm reading, it says, in verse 11, it's like, out of your own household, I am going to bring calamity upon you. And so, it seems, and yes, like, as you said, his son. And then, saying, before your very eyes, I will take your wives uh, and give them to one who is close to you, and he will lie with your wives in broad daylight. When I read that, it seems very similar to the cycle that we see in Scripture of, you have the people of Israel, revolt, or their leader revolts, and then they are scattered among the nations.
Is something vibrating by you? I just keep hearing this buzzing behind your talk. Okay, now it's done. All right.
Okay. There is this constant cycle in Scripture that we read of, you have the people of Israel are one with God, and then, starting in the garden, you have this oneness with God, you have rebellion, you have scatter, or they're thrown out of the garden. You have scatter among the people of Babylon. You have the other tribes coming in and taking captive the people of Israel. And so here you have it again. You have the prophet coming in, calling out David, and you have punishment. And so, and then later on, you will have repentance and renewal. And so this is just another, this is a cycle that we see over and over again that tells the story of sin and redemption that is over and over in the Bible, in Scripture. And so, to your point about, what is this? Is this historical, or is this, allegory? Is this parable? I would say like yes to all of it. Again, it's like I don't, did God kill this child directly? I would say, no, he did not kill this child directly. Like he would not, like we would say that was not a direct act of God. Did the child die? Yes. Was that seen as punishment? Yes. Is this story being told in this way that, out of your own household, like I'm telling you, David, this is what's happening to you. But as, as an Israelite reading this or telling the story, what they're telling their children is the story of their people. Like because of David, his children, his wives, we were scattered, we were taken advantage of in broad daylight, we were attacked, and so like that is how these scriptures should be read.
Well, I would maybe think that that's true if we didn't have the scripture of Absalom assaulting his father's wives, because I feel like that is showing a very literal translation of this, and it kind of takes away from this is supposed to be a parable or story that Israel's supposed to teach future generations of, metaphorically, we, the wives of Israel, of David, or, and stuff like that, were taken advantage of in broad daylight by our enemies, because we see that there is actually a literal story of women being assaulted the way that God cursed David to be. And I think that all of this goes back to, I'm not sure if you answered it. I'm sorry if I missed it. I asked you if you believe that the Bible is like 100% truth, if it's 100%, what it says, or if it's open to interpretation. Because I see where it says the Lord struck the child, and you're saying that the Lord did not strike the child. So either you disagree with the Bible, or you think that the Bible is not accurate in everything that it's saying, and it seems to be very up to your own personal interpretation and feelings at that point.
Well, no, what I'm saying is that, well, one, I believe firmly that the Bible is the Word of God and divinely inspired. I do not believe that the Bible is a textbook. I do not believe that the Bible was written for us to, and I would say especially the Old Testament. I do not believe that we should read the verses and chapters in the Old Testament and say, oh, well, Goliath was a giant, therefore in ancient times there were giants, and we just need to go find their bodies because there are giants, because there are people I've heard who have said, oh, well, Goliath was a descendant of a fallen angel and a human. It's like, well, that's just that is just not the case. And so and you can come to those.
Yeah, no, trust me, I've talked to many Christians that take that position. So
there, no doubt in my mind, and so it's like, and I think it's it is incorrect in my viewpoint and how I've been taught to read Scripture, especially, and I'll say again, especially the Old Testament, in that literal word for word textbook way, because the people of the Israelite people, they were a storytelling people. They were a oral tradition, campfire
storytelling people. Beautiful documentation these people had, no doubt. But, that is how they told their history. That is how they told their theology, how they related to God, and how they, explained that to their children was through these stories. Now, it was their life and it was real life. So, like, yes, David actually existed. These people that we say actually existed. And, yes, I do believe that there was, David and Goliath. Yes, that duel, I would say, actually happened. But, you know, to say, but what do we mean whenever it says a giant? Well, whenever you're telling a story and you want to say that, David, killed a giant, well, what you're saying is David was definitely the underdog here. He was not going to win, but he did. And God was on our side. That's why he won. And that very well, I would say, yeah, that's the case. He did have a lot of courage. God was with him, And so I think, that is what I'm trying to say. That I'm in no way would I ever say that the Bible is not teaching truth. I'm not saying that it is open to like my own personal interpretation. But what I'm saying is that, you have to read Scripture how it was written, and not, how we might read a textbook.
All right. I want to thank you for sharing your perspective on that passage. Do you mind if I move to a different one? Because I did want to say that I wanted to bring up at least two so we can kind of discuss the difference between them,
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, cool. So if we go to Numbers 31, verse 17, we see a verse where God is saying, "Now therefore kill every male amongst the little ones, and every I'm sorry, I think this is Moses. I'm sorry. Now therefore kill every male among the little ones, and kill every woman who has known man by sleeping with him." This is very consistent that we see throughout all of the rest of Exodus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, where God is giving, the quote unquote laws for purification, who one can take as like a wife and stuff like that. And we get further details of how an Israelite soldier can, by the law of God, take a female POW and take her to be his quote unquote wife. So I think that these passages bring up something very specific. So when it says to kill therefore every male among the little ones, and this is an action that we see God doesn't do anything against or never says anything against. And then we see God also taking the lives of male little ones also in other circumstances as well. How can we say that when it comes to things of how Israel was supposed to take the law, that we can say that that's metaphorical? When it comes to taking little girls as wives and offing little boys, when we see that in the books of the law, how can we say that that's metaphorical?
Okay, I just flipped there now, and so I'd like to read it. But I'm reading this, and it's definitely, it shows this ban, right? Like I think I mentioned that earlier, where it's seen as like a total ban, to kill everything. Let's see. And so, repeat your question for me.
Sure. So I'm saying that when we see that, like, when we understand that Exodus, Leviticus, and Numbers are law books, there are things that God is giving His growing and budding nation the regulations of how they ought live and how they ought treat each other and stuff like that. And we see that multiple instances, and this is just one of them, God is allowing the deletion of children. How is it that we can say that this is a metaphor or a parable that we should get a moral sense of?
Yeah, so I think, again, I do believe that, whenever we read this,
we it's important for us to look at what it shows, what it says about God's relationship to the Israelite people. And I do hear what you're saying. We're talking about the law here, what we ought do. Um, and in this law, it's saying that what is acceptable here is um, to to fight against and kill the enemies of Israel, right? Am I correct?
Yes, but it also allows for the deletion of little boys. And also the ones that have not known, and also of the little girls that have not known a man, because it talks about how um, basically they are to delete every male among the little ones and every woman who has known a man by sleeping with him. And we know that based on that time frame, with people not having as long of a life expectancy as us, people did tend to marry younger, and we do know that when it comes to times of that culture, there were very limited ways that one could even test for the quote unquote virginity of a young girl or a woman. And I don't know how in that time period they were able to do that without at least assaulting them first.
Yeah. So whenever how I would read this passage um, is quite simply to this is an instruction to completely eliminate this group of people. When it's talking about killing the boys, all boys, not just the men, even the young boys, killing the women, not just even the women who and it says the women who have not known a man. Is that correct?
Yeah, kill. It says to off every woman who has not known him or who has known a man by sleeping with him.
Right. So I would, yeah. So, and kill every woman who has slept with a man. Um, right. So I would imagine the purpose of that is um, to either one, just to completely like eradicate this group of people because they are enemies of Israel, the Midianites. And then where it says, save for yourself every girl who has never slept with a man, I don't know, we can speculate what that means. I don't know. I mean, it says, yeah, I mean, I would imagine that just, you know, would be suggesting that the girls who had not been defiled because in that tradition virginity is purity, and so if you were not a virgin then you would have to be ritually purified. And I would imagine if you are an enemy of Israel, then what's the point of purifying? I mean, you're outside of the covenant. Um, so I mean that would be my kind of take on that. Is we're looking at a passage where um, the the point of this battle is to eradicate an enemy of God, an enemy of Israel, right? And an enemy of God is, an enemy of Israel is seen symbolically as an enemy of God. And so they are eradicating that group of people. And then to say, if this person, if this woman has been has been with
Has
a
been
man,
with a man, yeah.
right? If this one has been with a man, then I mean, I don't know. I don't know what the purity laws were. I would have to probably do some other research and look in other places to see what that means for the Israelites. If that meant that they would, would they even be able to take this girl as their wife or not? I don't know. But I definitely read. I mean, because it says
Well,
to burn
I can
everything.
show you
Right?
that one. I believe it's Deuteronomy 21 that shows that you can indeed,
A
and shows how you can.
non-Israelite.
Yes. So Deuteronomy 21. I'll just read it real quick. So Deuteronomy 21, starting in verse 10, and this is God speaking. This isn't Moses. This one is God. That when you go out to war against your enemies, and the Lord your God hands them over to you, and you take captives, suppose you see among the captives a beautiful woman whom you desire and want to marry, and so you bring her home to your house. She shall shave her head, pare her nails, discard her captive's garb, and remain in your house a full month, mourning for her father and mother. After that, you may go into her and be her husband, and she shall be your wife. And if you are not satisfied with her, you shall let her go free, and certainly not sell her for money. You must not treat her as a slave, since you have dishonored her. So we see in these verses that you can see a female POW, and if you think that she's pretty, you can take her as your wife. When she gets back to your homeland, she's basically stripped of her identity. Hair, nails, and jewelry and stuff like that. All of that is very significant to one's culture and one's identity. So all of that is stripped from her, and then she is left in isolation for a full month. In that full month, she can grieve her family. But if you look at, I forgot the exact source. If you message me, I'll send it to you. But there is a Jewish site that I was looking at that talks about the Torah and what certain passages meant, and it talks about how this full month waiting period was to ensure that she was in fact not pregnant with another man's child. And so that was the waiting period, and if she was in fact not pregnant with another man's child, then that man could go in and be her husband, and then she would be his wife. And then we see at the very last verse, but if you are not satisfied with her, you shall let her go free, and certainly not sell her for money. You must not treat her as a slave, since you have dishonored her. It acknowledges the fact that she has been quote-unquote dishonored, which women are devalued and dishonored because they have been quote-unquote used, slept with, and not quote-unquote not pure. So because she has been tainted, he can't sell her as a slave or sell her for money. He just can simply let her go free. It doesn't give any obligation to him to give her any type of assistance, money, clothes, food. So it seems that from what we read, you, as an Israelite soldier, can look at a female POW and say, I like that, take her home, strip her of her identity and culture, make sure she's not pregnant with another man's child. Then you can take her as a wife, and when you grow tired of her, or if you do, you can literally just kick her out on the street. Whatever happens to her is not your problem.
Yeah, I mean that is. I mean that's appalling. I mean that's absolutely terrible. And ultimately and sadly that that is the culture. That's the. I mean it's terrible. That's the culture of the time that we're reading about. I mean, and even to kick a woman out onto the street uh, after you have either taken her away from her father and brothers or husband or killed
I
them.
mean, you offed her father and brothers and all that,
Right. I
and
mean
her
that's the
mother and
thing.
stuff.
It's like
Like, you didn't just take her from them. You
you've killed them.
completely off them. It's
Right.
terrible.
Oh no, I'm agreeing with you. I am agreeing with you that this is a terrible thing. I mean, I can't sit and try and explain and I'm not even going to try and defend any of the actions or anything that this says of this being good or bad. Um, because I mean it's bad. I mean that is a bad thing. That is bad. Um, that is a bad relationship to have with anybody. Um,
Hey Nick, give me 1 second, real quick. Give me like just a quick moment. All right.
Yeah.
I'll be right back. All right, sorry about that, Nick. I'm back now.
All right.
All right. So, yeah, I'm glad that you agree with me that this is absolutely abhorrent and terrible. If we're to take this as what it's saying, what do you think that this is literal, or do you think that this is a parable? And if you think this is a parable, what possible lesson could we get from this?
Oh, I don't think that. I don't necessarily think that this is a parable. I mean, I think that. I mean, it says what it says. Go and do this, or you have the right to do this. Um, I mean, I don't know how we should read this. I guess right now, if someone, which you are someone who is coming to me saying, Nick, how am I supposed to read this? I'm a Christian and I don't like this. Um, you know, this is one of those difficult passages where where, you kind of have to read it and say, what is being communicated to me? And when I read this, I think, what's being communicated to me is as as Israelites, it was believed that, um, you know, the land was theirs. This was ordained by God to be theirs. Um, and I think I think the culture of the time influences heavily the practices of the law. Um, I do think that just kind of goes. I think it goes together. I think not only is, I think some of for example, eating shellfish. I've heard that many Jewish people are allergic to shellfish, and so I've heard it said before that one of the reasons why in the law you are not allowed to eat shellfish is because it's likely that many people ate shellfish and died because for whatever reason people were getting sick from it, and so it was
That,
viewed as, oh, this must be an unclean thing, and so I don't
do
know.
you
I
think
don't
that
know.
might not be necessarily that they were allergic to it, but maybe that they weren't preparing it properly?
It
Because I
could be
think
that.
that
I
you and I
mean,
would agree that there are multiple instances throughout multiple cultures in the ancient time periods that they unnecessarily died simply because they didn't do things properly. They didn't sanitize medical equipment. They did things like blood leaching. They didn't wash their hands after taking a shit. All these type of things that led to death.
for sure. Like I would agree. I mean, there's many things that go into to things like that, and so I
But
mean,
I'll be honest. I don't know if, because you said something that was interesting to me. You said that more Jewish people today seem to have a seafood or a shellfish type of allergy. I don't know if that's true. That's something I'm definitely going to want to look up later. But if it is true, I think that that's very compatible with just evolution. If a culture of people decided that they were going to abstain from eating a certain food group, then that only logically follows that after a certain amount of generations, they wouldn't be able to tolerate that food group. You know, I don't see how that has anything to do with the Bible in any kind of capacity.
Oh, well, I'm not suggesting that people are allergic to shellfish because of the Bible. What I was suggesting is that it is possible that if and what I said was I have heard that it is not uncommon for someone who is like ethnically Jewish to have a shellfish allergy. That it's it is something that is you know kind of common in Jewish in like Jewish circles to have shellfish allergies. Um, I don't know why that is. That's just what I've heard. One of my friends who is ethnically Jewish and also he before he became a Christian was religiously Jewish. He has that, and he was like, "Oh yeah, it's actually pretty common." And I was like, "Oh, that's interesting." Um, and so just as we were kind of having a conversation, it was like, that's one, kind of theory, I guess you could say, as to like, is that why it made its way into the law? If people are eating something and dying, then it would make sense for the leaders at the time to say, hey, God doesn't want us to eat this because obviously look at what's happening to us. And it's also important to understand that the Old Testament and the law, it was not written by a lightning bolt coming down, striking the words into the ground. These are the hands of, and well, really the oral tradition being told of the leaders of the Israelite nations too. So like that's also important to say. So even though yes, it says God said, well, we're talking about people that we say are prophets. They're being inspired by God to say these things. They're speaking, very, at times hyperbolically. They're saying these, because even in the language of in Hebrew, you don't have words like very, so like whenever we read, some of our English translations and we read, you know, they did this, whatever, you know what I'm trying to say. What the type of writing that they would often employ is, using hyperbolic language. So I mean, some of these stories are very outlandish because, well, if we want to portray the grandiosity of God, if we want to portray how great and powerful he is, then yes, we are going to say that he is so great and powerful that, he, did, that this great thing happened, or, he is so on our side, and we are so strong and powerful of a nation, and he is with us to the very end, that like he will not even spare he will not even spare a child. It's like we are, he is with us, and so that we have to keep that in mind whenever we read these scriptures. I think I've potentially gone on a little tangent because I'm starting to realize I don't remember what the last thing you said was, so I apologize for that.
No, it's okay. Honestly, I've quite enjoyed having you up here and having this conversation. I appreciate you and your time. I did want to let you go though, because I do have one more person in the queue, and I have to get off here in about 20 minutes because I have dinner to make. My girlfriend's gonna be off work soon. And I've gotta start dinner because I wasn't the one at work today. So
that's fine. I also need to make dinner for myself. I do want to kind of point out, and maybe this is something that I maybe shouldn't say like publicly. I am currently a student. I'm in seminary. So I'm still learning. Cool. I'm still doing these things. So I'm in seminary. I've been in seminary for about 5 years.
Okay.
I'm a Catholic seminarian, so I'm studying to be a Catholic priest, and so I've had scripture classes and in both Old Testament and New Testament, and I'll still have more. And I have a bachelor's degree in philosophy, and I'm working on my master's degree currently. So if you ever want to like have a conversation like in what is that, like a private message conversation, where I don't have to rely on my terrible microphone, uh, feel free to like reach out. And also for like the other people who may be listening to this, like, I don't speak for the church. I feel like I should probably say that, because I don't know everything, and I'm not perfect, and I'm still learning. So I just wanted to say that way I'm not like accused of heresy or anything.
No, absolutely, and I think that that's super important to focus on. I focus very clearly that I, as an atheist, no other atheist can speak for me, and I don't speak for them. And I understand that you, as someone who is, still going through a seminary, what you say, I should not, hold the Catholic Church accountable. And but for the couple people that are listening, I understand that you wanted to take that extra step and just ensure that. But I want to wish you luck on your studies and the rest of your education and your future, man. If you're welcome back anytime, I send you a follow. So feel free to DM me with any questions, or if you have any ideas for anything else that you'd like to discuss later on.
All right, thanks so much.
All right, man. Take care. Have a good day.
You too.
All right, that was Nick. Awesome. We have one more guest in the queue. I'm going to bring him up in just a moment. I just want to say thank you, everyone, for being here. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you for all the taps. Thank you for the likes. It's great. Let's see. All right, here we go. After this guest, though, I am going to be heading off. Hey, man, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. How's it going? Going all right today?
Hey, I'm doing pretty all right here. Thank you so much for your patience. I know you've been waiting for quite a while. So,
Oh, I'm at work, so I've just been listening and enjoying the conversation, man. So no problem.
that's great. I'm glad to hear it, and I hope that the rest of your shift goes well. Are you a Christian?
Yeah, I am. Yes, sir.
All right, great. How long have you been a Christian for?
Well, I grew up in a church my whole life, but I'll say, so yeah, I'll just leave it at that. I grew up in church my entire life.
All
I'm
right.
30. I'm 30, by the way, so pretty
All
old.
right. We're the same age. You're a lifelong Christian. I got you. And what on the background would you like to talk about?
We could do any of them. I think with like what's my man Nick that was up there? I think he did a good job as far as for like him from his understanding. I'm not Catholic, so I don't really know too much about what Catholics believe, but I would like to clarify a little bit some of the things that he said. Um, so maybe we can start there and we can touch as we go. We can leave off where you left off when you were asking about Exodus 21, 22 to 25. Uh, well, that was one of the things that caught my attention that you guys discussed. That I think
We're
you guys,
talking about the pregnancy, right? The
yeah,
abortion thing,
yeah,
for sure.
exactly. So yeah, when you read Exodus 21 through 25, I know the way you say you interpret it is like that you don't think that when you read it you can tell if the baby when the baby comes out if it's alive or not, but you can when you keep when you keep reading, because the scripture verbatim states that like if the baby comes out, and then if it's unharmed, then you pay a fine to the husband, no big deal. But then it goes on to say further that if basically if the baby dies, it's eye for an eye. And how you know that that's the case? Because of what it goes then on to say, and it goes eye not two for a two. So it's clear in this case of what the scripture is saying, which is if you hit a woman, whether it be by accident or not, but you cause her to go into distress and to go into labor, if the baby is born and the baby is fine, you pay a fine, no big deal. If the baby dies, then it's eye for an eye, and it's life for life, which is if the baby dies, then you die, whomever it is that caused this to happen.
Okay, so you're taking it as when it's saying that no harm follows, you're talking about harm to the fetus and not harm to the woman.
Yeah, and it's not harm to the woman. And we can tell me how it reads. So it's because of like if we go to it in my let me go to my logos app here on my other computer. It's 21. Let's go there. Logos. And yep. You can let me know when you're there, and I can read it off mine if you like. I read from the ESV because the ESV is the all of it, translated from Hebrew and Greek. But to me, ESV is the closest that we have. They do their best in ESV to try to do a word for word translation, but even then, it's not perfect, right? Because there's still little bits of a disconnect between Hebrew and Greek. But that's what I read from. But it doesn't. I don't know which one you read from.
Well, the one I have currently in front of me is the NRSV, but I'm adaptable. We can work with whichever,
So
and we have access to the internet too, so we can get to any translation that we need to. I think.
Yeah, I have my logo. I use the Logos app, so it's like the Bible app that many people use. There's a free version if you ever like to use that in your discussion. It doesn't cost you any money to get the free version, and you can it's just where you can have the Bible. And it's like a software where you can any translations you want, you can just flip through. But I'll read what you guys read. And this is what how the ESV reads it. Uh, when men strive together and hit a pregnant woman so that her children come out, so it clearly says children, but there is no harm. The one who hit her shall surely be fined, as the woman's husband shall impose on him, and he shall pay as the judges determine, meaning the judges, in the elders in the community. But if there is harm to the children, then you shall pay life for life. So you can definitely tell harm here is referencing to dying because it went from if the children come out, but there is no harm, aka meaning we can interpret this because how it reads, no death, then you only pay a fine, and this fine will be determined by the elders, and it's fine to be paid to the husband. If there is harm, that means the children comes out and it dies, then you will pay life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot, burn for burn, wound for wound, stripe for stripe. So it's clear, and that's how we can clearly see what's being painted here. That if this were to occur, if the children come out no harm, then you just pay the fine and you're okay. But if the children are born and they die, then you die. So it's clearly God showing in this instance there is a high regard for children. That's why I didn't quite. And you're not the only one. I was at another live yesterday. People love to bring up Exodus 21, but they don't read. They don't read it in context, and then they never read the entire thing. So I think that's kind of where people get hung up.
All right, I definitely hear where you're coming from, and I want to express that I'm happy that you came up and told me about this. I guess for me, the reason why I'm saying the opposite is because when I looked at this passage, I was like, that seems a little weird, right? And so I did further study on this passage, and I have found Jewish sources that talk about what their law codes were back in ancient Israelite time, and they specifically say that this passage is about the well-being of the woman. It is not about the fetus, and that they don't even recognize life entering the fetus until birth. And you can go to myjewishlearning.com and see that that's on there. You can also go to rabbinical.assembly.org, and it'll tell you that this passage is recognized by Jewish scholars and rabbis as the well-being for the woman. It is not the well-being of the fetus. So when I do the research on it, it seems that no, it is very clearly talking about the woman.
When I can't do, so I'm working, but I wish we could do extra.
Well, how about this? I will give you a follow, and after this,
give me a follow.
I will send you the website that I'm looking at right now. And you can read the paper for yourself. It is 8 pages. It is long. It's one of the things that I've been through before, but it does talk about how from a Jewish point of view, this passage is talking about the well-being of the woman, and it is not referring to the fetus.
I like to read. So the reason why I would say what I would disagree is because when we take this to this original context as well, reading in its original language, that's what I meant by I'm working, I can't go to my computer. What I love to do, I like to use my logos to be able to look at the original language because Greek and Hebrew are kind of distinct, right? So if we can actually tell by the words and the connotations of the original letters and words that are being used, and it gives more of a direction of what's being referred to.
Real quick, I wanted to tell Nick in the comments the passage that we are talking about right now and discussing is Exodus 21, 22 through 25. All right, I'm so sorry to interrupt you. I just wanted to let people know where we were at.
Agreed. That's fine. So I would say by off that point, off the original language, I would disagree because I've done that study as well. The original text, it will clearly see that you can make a case that it's talking about the woman, but I do not think we get that when we look at the original language. And
You
as
think
far
that
as
the
for
Hebrews are wrong about the Hebrew language, but you are right about the Hebrew language?
no, not me. I'm talking about I've done from scholars I watched and listened to myself as well
Are
who
they
come to
Hebrew
the same conclusion
scholars?
I do. Correct. Yes, the
Oh,
scholars, the Hebrew scholars, Hebrew
all
and
right.
Greek scholars.
Well, fantastic. Then I would love for,
And
like I said,
I would say this.
I'll send you that. I hope that you can send me that
I will.
because I'm looking at the Hebrew scholars that say the opposite. So I think
I
that
will.
we're
We can trade.
definitely.
I
I'm
think we
sorry.
can
What?
trade, and we can. I think we can trade. I will definitely send it to you. We can trade, and then
Fantastic.
we can both take a look, and then we can, even come back if we after we take a look at each other's papers. And I would love to even come back on the live to do that if you wouldn't mind, because
I wouldn't
I
mind
love
that at
doing
all.
this.
I so for the next day I might be kind of busy, but like Wednesday I'll be free anytime during the day, not during the
I work from
nighttime.
home, so anything I work from home. So anytime that
All
you're
right.
available, we can make it work. Like I said, I love talking about this stuff.
Yeah, that's great. I want to thank you so much for how respectful you've been and how willing you are to be able to swap sources with me. Not many people are, and I'm always willing to do so. But no one ever messages me, and no one ever seems to care. So
I'll point out. My thing is, my point in this is not to. I think maybe it can get kind of sticky. Let's be honest when we're talking about trying to. Because I'll say in return, to be fair, you're probably the most respectful person I've come across since I've started doing these lives about a week ago. And I'm not saying that to just because you said that to me. I mean that's my honest assumption from what I've seen. Like normally when I come on, that no one, the opposition never tries to hear you out. They when you try to give them sources, I've tried, they won't take it, and then it's very disrespectful on the other end. So I just appreciate you for even being kind to the people. At least I don't know you. From what I've seen today, you seem to be very very kind. At least even in your disagreement, which I appreciate because I haven't gotten that on this app since I started attending these lives over a week ago.
hey, thank you, man. That really means a lot to me. And I see Nick in the comments there saying that this was his first time joining a live, and it was a good experience. And that means a lot to me. I'm human. I mess up. There are some people that I have some combative tones with. Even and obviously you don't have to, but you can follow my YouTube at the atheistic preacher, and you'll see the videos of these lives, and you'll see even the first guest I believe from this live. I was a bit short with. I don't like doing that, but I will never insult the individual. I will never tell that person that they're dumb, that they don't, deserve to speak or anything of the sort. I want to hear them out. I want to hear what their perspective is and why. If their perspective is shit, I'll tell them that. But at the same time, if they think my perspective is shit, I want them to tell me that. I want us to be able to honestly be truthful with each other and understand that we are mature adults and are able to have this conversation and say, okay, I want to see where you're coming from, because I believe in trying to understand where the other person is coming from, that betters our progress and our communication better with each other.
Agreed. So I think though that we can go ahead now that me and you both have sent each other, our documents on the verse. Now I'll particularly ask the question: how can one be Christian but not pro-choice? I believe that the Bible is very clear on this point. That and we can segue, later on into all the war stuff. But to be direct, the Bible is very clear on that every single person is made in God's image, and that is something to be held in high regard. And I think for the Bible, and I think Christians' perspective is this. I think Nick did do a good job at least explaining this part when I liked when he said we're Christians are not saying that people don't have the ability to make choices that they want to make. Because obviously, even us as Christians, we do not always make the right choice. There are Christians who have even had abortions, right? So I don't think that's what Christians are saying. I think
Sure.
what Christians are saying is this: if we're going to really tally, though, to come up with just a definite should this occur, we would say no. And the reason would being is because, hey, our lives are one thing. Like if our lives are crap because of whatever we've done or choices that we've made, the this new life, right? That you can say all day that it's your life, but it's not. This is a completely separate life. This is a completely separate one, and this is the process by which human beings are born. Um, we do, like because this life does not deserve to be taken advantage of due to the fact of your circumstance. Now we can get into as well if you want about because I know people love to bring up. Well, what if someone is the great? Well, what if someone doesn't have the money? What if someone is in an abusive type of relationship dynamic? I would still lean to say these are definitely can be recognized as real life problems, right? But again, my question would be, what do these problems or issues have to do with this new life that's now formed? Because this new life has no mind frame of any of those things that occurred. If that makes sense.
I'll be honest, I'm not 100% sure. Do you think you could phrase it one other
So
way
let,
for
let,
me?
let me try, let me try to phrase it. I'm saying
Yeah, yeah.
I'm saying that like when people who are opposed to uh, abort, like who are opposed to pro-life, their main points they try to argue, which are not saying are not valid, which are what if a woman is raped and she
Yeah,
something
the
like
affordability and the assaulting,
that.
right?
Yeah, yeah, and that's what I mean.
Yeah.
So stuff like that. That's normally what people love to bring up. My point in question still then is okay. These definitely are tough circumstances. These are you can even say very very tough and serious situations. But again, my question will go back to this this new fetus in this inside of this woman's body. It's a brand new life. This life has no awareness or fault in the circumstance of a great or not having enough money or abusive relationship. It has no awareness or fault in any of these things. So we're basically what we're saying is
Okay.
that's my point. So that's my question. So
Sure,
why do
I
we?
would agree with that. That the fetus would have no responsibility or effect on the external circumstances of how it got there.
And that's I think that's the Christian point of view, right? Our point of view is that like we understand that bad things happen. We understand that situations are tough, but at the end of the day, what we're really signing up to say then, if we're going to say that yeah, we're usually everybody should just be okay with aborting life, due to these extreme circumstances. Well, then then we have chaos because see now that means what we're wanting to really say is that we just want to be okay to kill. That's what people. That's what we. I'm sorry, unalive. I'm new to the TikTok thing, so I definitely apologize. Um,
No, you're okay. I understand.
that's kind of where we have to go, right? And I know nobody wants that. I would hope not anyway. I don't believe so, but I mean like that's what we would then have to start having that discussion because like does that now make sense a little more maybe?
Yeah, yeah. And here, I'll respond in just 1 second. Just give me like 10 seconds, real quick. So let me see if all right. At the very base of what we're saying, I think from your perspective, you're saying that abortion cannot end in the termination of life because you think that from a Christian perspective, life is valuable from the point of conception till the end of its life. Correct?
Correct.
So, what if, and I'd be very interested to hear your opinion on this because this is my thought. I myself am, I don't believe in God, but I myself am not a fan of abortion. I don't like it. I recognize that it's a life, and my whole morality is centered about the well-being of individuals and trying to preserve as much life as possible. From my perspective, the way I see this is that there's a very obvious answer to the pro-life and pro-choice debate, whether you look at it from a religious perspective, a political perspective, or just a social perspective. It is, we are at the point in time where we have the technology to create artificial wombs and teach ourselves to extract fetuses as young as possible so that as soon as women learn that they are indeed pregnant, if they choose that they don't want to be pregnant, we can help them with that choice. Because I agree that it is the right of every individual to be able to govern their own bodies and medical decisions. And I truly believe that that also encompasses pregnancy. I don't believe that consent to sex means consent to pregnancy. I don't think that just because there is a fetus growing inside of you that you have to allow it to stay. The problem that we're coming into is evicting the other individual from using the resources of your body, which I believe you should be allowed legally and morally to do. We're talking about at a certain point, until a certain point, will result in the death of the fetus. I don't think that we have to let that happen. I think that we're at a good point in our culture and in our societies where we can work together and create these artificial wombs and vet families so that when they're fully developed, they'll have a good, loving, and safe family to grow up with. I think that the obvious answer here moving forward is to put our heads together medically with technology so that we can respect the rights of both individuals involved in this, the woman and the fetus, because I do see it as a violation to tell the woman, I know that something is happening to your body and someone else is using your body in a way that you don't consent to, but you're stuck like this. You have to take it. I think that that's abhorrent. I think that that's absolutely disgusting. So I think she should have every right to say, I don't want this in me, get it out. I don't think that that means, though, that once we get it out, that we have to let it die. So from my perspective, being secular, I want to respect the personhood and the rights to both individuals. And until we can all get on board with that, I think that we're kind of stuck here in this thing of, well, what are we going to do with, if we have to pick one or the other, I think we would have to pick the woman. Because, yeah, sure, the fetus has a right to life, but no individual has the right to use another's body in a way that they don't consent to, even to live. And we can see other instances where people have, quote unquote, the right to life, but they are justified in having their life taken. Like someone breaks into someone's house and they get shot. We understand that that was a tragedy. It shouldn't have happened. There's so many ways that they could have been avoided. But at the end of the day, you don't have the right to infringe on somebody else's rights. It just doesn't work that way. So does that make sense from my position?
Yes, I understand where you're coming from. And I also think when you guys talked, you and Nick talked about the government. So I think then just like how just like how people who oppose or maybe against Christianity, right, which is fair, they implement and go to protests and all that kind of things, and they vote how they want to vote for particular issues. So I would just agree that we have the same right, and with that, and that's the right of every person. Um,
Oh, I agree. You have the right to go vote, and I think that you should go vote. I just think from a Christian perspective, you shouldn't, because you should just simply warn that abortion is wrong and that God will be displeased and that the harm that they're causing to their unborn children. But I don't think that you should take any action to prevent it because you have to at least provide the choice because the choice is God given for them to make.
Well, isn't the I would honestly my question would be, isn't the choice still being made? Because like even though we're opposed to abortion, when we look at the abortion numbers, they're actually getting worse, not better. So it's like, yeah, we have a belief, but what it's like to me, like what you're stating, that's already occurring. So like even though we're going out in the streets, even though we are voting a particular way, people are still doing what they want to do. So I think too that's also another reason, another part that I get confused by when this subject gets brought up because it's like I hear what your people are saying, like whether it be the president or you or like other people who are pro choice.
Well,
It's like
the
this
president currently is a Catholic, so the president, I don't
no.
probably share the same views on this.
I meant in the primaries would come off. She lost, but you know what I mean. Like the vice president is what I meant. So I think
I don't even think
am
Kamala Harris and I
I
share the same views on abortion as you know.
No, yours is a little different than hers. I will admit that. Yours is a little different than actually the way you put it. I don't think I've heard before. Like you're especially the part where you're like, hey, you do. It is your at least moral compass of like, hey, I do not necessarily agree with it, and if there's a way to be able to help this life, you actually want to do so. That I think is great. I think my point just is I just don't. Maybe you can help me understand to me, it just seems like whether or not a Christian we go out and vote, whether we protest, when we look at the abortion numbers, just factually the data, what you want is already happening. Like when we just look at the numbers, they're like the
What I want is for abortions to be incredibly rare because if a woman
no, no,
finds out that she's pregnant and doesn't want it, we are able to extract the fetus and be able to find it a better family to ensure that it's safe and happy.
not that portion. Starting to clarify, not that portion of what you want. I'm sorry, I think I need to clarify. Not what you want. I mean, like when you made the comment about like as far as for like the majority of people and kind of how they want society to run, which is you do kind of agree with, which is, hey, people are going to make their choices. There is no need to go out in the street. Just let them make their choice. And if it comes up on the voting box, vote on it on the voting box, and that should be it. I'm saying that like, well, I mean, technically, it seems whether the protests are not are happening. Um, People are still doing kind of what you say they have what they have the right to do, which is people are still doing what they want. And we know this by just looking at the numbers. The abortions are not getting lower. They're actually raising. Even with there is a even a recent study that I've seen. Just even as last as 2 months ago, that we were able to look at, like from an abortion website it was. But even with the dis of the Roe versus Wade being done away with and it getting kicked down to the states, it did not halt abortion. Abortions actually still went the opposite direction and skyrocketed. So it's like people are so afraid of these laws and like all Christians are pushing this and we're not gonna be able to do this or that. Well the data says otherwise. So I guess that's just my point there that like I think all this talk of like
So what is your solution for these? So if you're saying that the data is we're seeing more abortions now than we ever have before,
we are
and we
we
want it
are.
to stop, then what is your solution for them to stop?
Well, I think my solution would be, which, and you can tell me if you disagree with this. And I'm not saying, and before I state this I'm not saying this is even what every Christian follows by, but this is what we should because this is what a part of what we believe. Well, would you agree or not agree that this wouldn't happen if we would listen to what the Bible says, which is what we don't have sex before marriage, and children really in the encompass of what we believe are only theoretically supposed to happen in marriages. The reason why we have what we have today is because that's not happening. And I will state that as agreed as my first premise before I went into my statement. This also counts for us as Christians. Like we're having babies outside of marriage, which is against what we like our belief and what we're commanded. The solution that would take care of itself if And I think that's what Christians will be looking at. They're like, just only, not even from a standpoint of, oh, do this because this is our Bible and it's true. Now, I believe that. I mean, what I'm saying is, even for a person who does not believe that, what's not deniable is that when people look at the Bible, a lot of the laws you have today come from the Bible. Why? Because they note that whether they're Christian or not, they agree that the laws are good. One of the
I,
laws,
I wouldn't agree with that. I think that we can trace these views to a lot further beyond when the Bible was actually compiled.
specifically to, especially, well, specifically to, we can even narrow it down. Specifically to at least America, you find this. A lot of our laws come from the
No, I
Bible.
think America is very anti-biblical and very anti-Christian with it,
No,
especially with its laws.
I'm not saying that it's. I'm not saying that we're entirely Christian. I do not believe that we are a. This is a Christian nation.
Oh
From
no,
what's
no,
what?
we are 100% secular. We even have the founding father signatures on treaties like the Treaty of Tripoli
Correct.
that say
Not
that
even
that America has not ever and never will be a Christian nation.
correct. Not all of our founding
So
fathers were
we are not
Christian.
Christian. We are not at all based on biblical laws. We are a secular nation with religious freedom.
We will agree. Well, I will say we will agree on the fact that when you look at even our history, what you will find, some of our forefathers were Christian, but not all. That is why you see in our
Correct.
Constitution, why see in our Constitution, in our sorry, I'm about to sneeze, in our Declaration of Independence, where we have in our laws of religious freedom. Why it had to be that way? Because we were a melting pot. So no, what I'm saying is due to these belief systems, these widespread belief systems, our laws have a mixture of some biblical principles, some that are not. But one thing the forefathers could agree upon was that, hey, they were of the essence, no matter what their beliefs were, they weren't going to let one or the other dominate what laws got put into place. Which you could claim, like, if you're not a
It
Christian.
wasn't about what laws God put into place. It's
No, I'm
saying
not.
that they weren't going to allow that one specific religion rule the entire nation because
We
that's what they
agree.
fled. They fled that the fact that they were being forced to be a certain denomination of Christian and they didn't want to do so.
Correct. That's also my point that I'm making. I wish I didn't do a good job of doing it, but that's the same point that I'm making, which
All right,
is, so
I'm just
we
glad that
agree.
we agree. At least on that. I can't tell you how many people that I've talked to that fight me so hard on this. I'm just glad that you at least know what you're talking about. It's refreshing. I'm glad that we
Yeah,
agree on this. But I agree with you that most of the founding fathers were a mix of deists and Christians. But
correct.
as far as when it comes to the nation itself, the nation is in no way a Christian nation.
We're not a Christian nation. If we
All right,
did, if we were, there are a lot of things that wouldn't happen, such as LGBTQ,
a hundred
such as
percent.
abortion, and etc. Wouldn't happen.
Yeah,
So
adultery, all these things that
yeah.
we wouldn't have jails. We would have death penalties and stuff like that. There's so much that would be changed.
So we agree there, but that's still my point as far as, for, like, even when they do surveys, this is what you get when people talk about Christianity, and maybe not regarding pro-choice. People agree with this. They say you hear the same thing over and over again, which is, we love those Jesus teachings and all that. We all follow those, even though I don't believe in God. And that these laws seem very plausible, but very plausible and logical, like the teachings themselves. So my question is to you, regarding my solution. What do you think? Like I said, the Christian Bible says, well, this intercourse should only happen between a man and a woman. And babies by our faith and belief should only happen in marriages. So I think the issue we have today, because everybody does not hold to that belief, well, people have intercourse all kind of ways and everywhere with all kinds of people, and then it's like, well, what they're wanting is an out for their actions. That's kind of what we see.
So and I could be wrong about this. It's been a couple months since I've looked it up, but I believe it's about 15% of women that have abortions are actually married. So we know that married women do get abortions, and it's not like just a couple percent. It's over 10%, which is not a lot, but still enough to where we shouldn't ignore it. So just because you're married doesn't mean you're not going to get an abortion. And I also think that we need to pay attention to the cultures and the time periods. Back then, when women had less rights and were unable to get divorced, they were kind of stuck and had to have these babies. They kind of had to have these children for the man.
That's what I'm
Now
saying.
nowadays, okay,
Take
so
that.
so, so so the issue is also divorce too. Is that correct?
I'm not saying divorce. I'm saying let's take out. Let's like let's look at the solution from. Let's take out like, oh, well, this is what they used to do back then. No, I'm saying let's look at the premise of what I did, like of what the teaching is, which is if, because people love to bring that up as well, like you said, women on happy marriages. Well, that's a hard take to take because we can't really even super get a
Well,
data
I
analysis.
don't I don't think they're happy marriages, but I also don't know. They might just be too poor to have a child, and they might have decided together not to have a child.
And that is fine. So I'm saying let's take that out and let's just look at the what I said, which is if people were not having intercourse, right, at the high clip that they are, because we live in, like you said, we live in a secular world where there isn't a this type of regard of only have intercourse when married. It's no, if I like you, I can have intercourse with you, and if a baby comes out of that, maybe we keep it, maybe we don't. But you have a higher percentage of not keeping it. Why? Because in these hookups or one night stands or flings, there isn't a investment in this, and that is why it's so easy when these things happen. Why, if you look at the percentage of abortions that do occur, if you just look at the studies of what types and kind of relationships and women that are having these, it's not it's most of them are they're not all from bad homes. The majority are just from women who believe that that they don't want the baby. They made a mistake. I slept with the guy. This is going to ruin my life, and I want a future. So again, it goes back to you're willing to do an act, but you're not willing to handle the consequence. That's what I that so
Well,
that there again we go back
having an abortion is handling the consequences. What are you talking about?
again. I was handling it negatively. So that's like me saying because it's causing individuals not to be responsible for their actions.
So don't you think that it's also then our responsibility to ensure that they have an option that is better, positive, and they cannot turn down?
I don't think so. Again, now we will have to play into people's morality. I think that's where me and you differ. I do not believe people have a good morality. The Bible, what I believe, the Bible says the opposite. None of us do, and I think
Well,
that is
what is a quote unquote good morality?
well by you, but because I think what you're inferring, correct me if I'm wrong. What you're trying to infer is that hey, if we gave people a better option, people would be more inclined to take this option instead of aborting their baby. I'm saying I don't think so. I think you give people the best option, and they still probably
No,
wouldn't
I'm
take it.
saying that would be the option. So instead of having an abortion where the fetus would suffer deletion, the options are you are pregnant or you get this fetus removed from you and you give up all rights and claims to it. And yeah, if you decide to go with that procedure and sign the papers, then it doesn't matter. You have no more say that we're going to take the fetus and put it into an artificial womb and vet a family and ensure that when it's finished developing, that that fetus is going to be a baby that's going to be happy with its new family and that are going to raise it and love it and that we know is a safe place for it. These are going to be the options. These are your choices. Do you want to have the fetus removed from you as quickly as possible because you don't want to be pregnant and you have every right to not be pregnant? Or do you want to remain pregnant? These are the options that we must provide for them and they have every right to choose. But just because the option is you can get the fetus out, that does not mean that our only option is to let the fetus die. We can make sure that the fetus lives, but that still does nothing to take away the right from the individual woman to make sure that she does not want to have the fetus in her and therefore she has every right to take it out.
Okay.
Does that make
I
sense?
no. It makes sense. I'm just trying to
Okay.
figure
All
out
right.
how I want to respond because like I see where you're going with it. as far as for like I see even before it's like I'm not getting it, even before I understood you. I'm just trying to figure out because I disagree, but I'm trying to figure out how to word it in a way we don't keep going in a circle. Let me see.
No, it's okay. And
Uh,
I just want to give you a heads up real quick. In about 5 minutes, I am gonna have to get off. I have to get the chicken in the oven, so I got things to do.
oh no, I totally
But I
understand. Like
want
I
to
said,
give you a good amount of time to think of a response and reply to it, and then we can say our goodbyes.
yeah. I think for now, 'cause I think we already agreed we'll get on the one another later this week or next week. I'm gonna because my answer is I disagree, but I think it would be sort of the same answer I gave before, which is to me still it's that yes, I would agree with you that like hey, if you're taking the position, you're stating that not if you are because you are so no because you're since you're taking this position of well this is my solution of just being able to say hey we're going to be able to take we're going to take this egg out as soon as you find out you're pregnant for the baby hasn't grown in any fashion into a baby. I okay. I guess understandable that that is a form a form of some type of solution. I wouldn't agree with it because I still then again would say we're still taking a life that has a chance to form into a grown life, but we're now choosing to kill, sorry, unalive, due to the fact of this individual saying basically I just want to unalive this baby for whatever reason. Like I said, for me it wouldn't matter just because of the fact of it's this baby's life, not their life. So at the end of the day, it is unaliving, and it's a the M word, the MUR, that you are that. That's what you are. There's no ifs ands or buts about it. And so for me, I wouldn't mind if people want to say that they're okay with abortion, then they should be okay and shouldn't fight so hard with the M tag. Do you agree or not agree with that?
That they
You
shouldn't
should
fight so hard with the what tag?
I don't know if I can say that word on here, but the MURDR being a ER like a
Oh yeah, no, I would disagree because I think so. I think you and I would both agree that not all killing is murder, correct?
correct, but this is and I would agree on that.
I wouldn't agree with this, and I would see this as a tragedy and something that is unnecessary, not on the woman's part, but on society's part. The
Well,
reason why I would see this as an unnecessary tragedy, but the woman is limited in her options. She either gets this abortion or she's forced to endure her rights being violated by continuing a pregnancy that she does not consent to. So this is now society's burden to say that we need to ensure that the woman has a way that her rights are continued to be protected while we protect the rights of the unborn child as well. Because society has decided not to take its responsibility and step up and do this, we are now putting the blame on the woman who is limited in her options and is only just doing what I believe should be her right and saying that I think that everyone has the right to make the medical decisions for their own body. And if you don't want to be pregnant, you should not have to be pregnant. Consent to sex is not consent to pregnancy. And so, therefore, it does not mean that you should be forced against your will to endure 9 months of pregnancy and the potential risks of what that could bring to your health, that some of them are even lifelong risks that you will have to deal with for the rest of your life. My girlfriend's sister, her first pregnancy gave her diabetes, and it's something that she still struggles with to this day. She had the child, and it's all great, but nonetheless, that's just something on a very small scale of the type of lifelong effects that women could have through having pregnancies. And if they don't consent to it and they get these lifelong conditions, that is a disservice to them as well as to any future daughters that we have that are going to have to deal with the same effect. And so that's why I think that the clear moral response for us to react with is we need to find a way to respect the rights of the woman as well as the rights of the unborn fetus. And until we can find a solution that respects both of them, we don't have a good solution, because currently what we have is we're trampling on one or the other.
So again, I think what me and you would disagree, and so we've agreed on something. What we disagree is that you keep referencing to say that just because a woman, does an act, right, of having consensual sex, that hey, if a pregnancy comes from this, that's she didn't expect that, then she shouldn't have to be responsible for that. I would say that that's
No,
not.
no, no. She should be responsible and have consequences for her actions, sure. But I'm not. But consent to sex is not consent to pregnancy. That's why I
I hear
said
what you're saying.
getting an abortion is a responsible action that is done. If she realizes that she cannot care for a child, and let's say her health does not allow her to carry a child for 9 months to give it up for adoption, and the best choice for her and her health is to get an abortion, she is the one that has every right to make that decision, and that is something that she is taking the responsibility on and taking the consequences of her actions by going to the doctor, by making sure what the risks are for her, and making the necessary decisions that are needed for the situation that she is in. That is responsibility. That is taking the consequences for her actions.
So again, I think I said again, I'm understanding you. What I'm saying is I do not agree with that because hey, when I had sex with my wife before, when we, I knew there was a chance to have a baby, right? I knew that. I'm not. I'm not. I am. And I've always known that, right? I've always known that this is a possibility, even before my wife, that anybody you to do
Yeah,
that with, that's possible. So everybody should
yeah.
So I don't think that's a default. So like, so
Well, I
that's what I'm
mean,
saying.
so as an STD, do you think that you as a man, if you slept with someone and got an STD, that you should just live with that, or do you think that you have every right to go to the doctor and say, "Please help me get rid of this"?
No, I would go to the doctor, but I'm saying it still
Okay,
take away
so
from
so
it's
y-
my
so
fault.
you but STDs are a potential consequence of sex.
Correct.
So
We agree on that.
why is it that you can get rid why is it that you can go to the doctor and say help me get rid of this for one, but not the other?
Are we really? I will say this is what we. I think for our first. I think this is good. We're really disagreeing. Are you really stating that an STD is on the same? This is not me. I will say I'm not saying it in
No,
jest
I'm not
either. On
saying
that
that an
same
STD is
level.
on the same level as a baby. What I'm saying is that both pregnancy and STDs, as well as injury, just regular bodily injury and internal bleeding, are consequences, potential consequences of having sex. I think that just because you consent to sex doesn't mean that you consent to all of the consequences and reactions from sex. If you end up getting an STD, you should have every right to go and seek medical attention. If you have, internal bleeding from sex, you should have every right to go to a doctor and say, "Help me with this." Same thing with pregnancy. These are all they all share one thing in common. They need sex in order for them to happen. So, just because you agree to the sexual intercourse does not mean you agree to live with the consequences of that. It just means that you are taking on the responsibility to get the proper actions done, whatever that may be. Whether that's going to the doctor and saying, "Hey, my balls have warts on them, please help me with them," or saying, "Hey, I'm pregnant and I can't be pregnant." So, whatever the situation is, that should be between the individual and their doctor. Whether it's a man trying to figure out what's going on with his dick, or whether it's a woman talking about her reproductive rights, also with a doctor. It should be between them and the doctor. We shouldn't interfere. But what we should realize is just because something happens because of sex, that does not mean that person has to live for the rest of their life with that condition.
So where I will say my. I know you have to go, so I'll state very clearly my stance. My stance is this: when I do anything, whether it's in sex or anything that I do, any consequence that occur from that, I have to be, as an adult, I have to be accepting of whatever comes. If it's an STD, I'll say if it's an STD, then yes, if I can, if it's treatable, I go treat it. If it's not, I deal with it. Suck it up. Oh, who's too bad, so sad. Point is, I didn't have to have sex. I didn't have to do that.
No,
So
of
I
course
just,
not.
so
But you can get the medical treatment for your SCD, and that's what you and I are agreeing on. And I think
and
that a woman should be able to get medical treatment for a pregnancy if she is unable to have it for whatever that reason is.
what the woman would be doing would be murder. What I'm doing is not that. It's still me and my body, right? Like as far as for what the doctor's
It's
working
not
on.
murder. It's evicting another individual from using her body in a way she doesn't consent to, and where the difference is that I believe that just because we evict one individual from using another person's body in a way that person doesn't consent to, that doesn't mean we have to let that individual die. And I'm advocating for us to try to go forward with a way where we can ensure the survival of these fetuses. But it seems like everyone else is very comfortable staying in where we're at now, whereas we're either stomping on the fetus's rights or we're stomping on the woman's rights. And it seems like lots of people seem to favor stomping on women's rights. And I can't get behind that.
And I will say this: I can see seeing in the way you perceive it, right? I can see how you would think and see it the way it's well. Hey, it's either if I have to choose between telling women they can't have abortions, or I have to choose between saying, well, I want women to be able to have rights over their bodies. So I will choose to say then that, hey, if you don't want the baby inside of your body, you have the right to kill the baby,
Well,
or
it's
unalive
not
the
about
baby.
what's easier to say. It's what I think. What I think is right.
No, that's what I'm saying. Now I'm saying either this. Well, I don't want to miss. I'm not trying to misquote you. I'm saying that I can see your side of things.
Okay.
I
All
just
right.
hope that
Cool.
you can see from me is that like, even though I can understand where you're coming from, well, me and you again, that like which we established that we differ on this from the beginning, which I think you already know. I think where our disconnect will be, and then will continue to be, is the fact of how we see the fetus in relation with, okay, by this woman choosing to abort the fetus is, I do not see the fetus. Would you agree with? Let me take that back. You agree with that? You do not think that, you do agree that the fetus is a different person. For me, though, with that being said, because this is a different person, that is also why I cannot see it the same, at least from my viewpoint, of me catching an STD and then going to take care of that. Because at the end of the day, that's still something of dealing with me, like my body. If as far as like it's only affecting me, when you go even with a fetus, that's still, well, I'll give you, it's twofold. You're not only are you altering the woman's body, right? Because we know that there are different types of abortions, but all involve the woman's body as well. So I'll give you that. But now you're affecting two bodies. You're affecting the woman's and the fetuses, and then that's why I say that's where we differ as far as how it does not match with an STD. With an STD, the only thing that's being involved is me, my one body. If with the woman and
Right,
the
and maybe
fetus,
you're
it's
not
two.
understanding my point with that because I understand what you're saying, and that wasn't my point with bringing that up.
No, I think your point is because, like, right before it goes further along, right, it technically doesn't have limbs. It's not, you wouldn't consider it a baby. Is that right? Is
No,
that what?
no, that's not at all where I'm going with. I'm saying that both are potential consequences of sex. That's it. That's the only comparison between an STD and a fetus, is that both need sex in order to result in that. Can we agree on that?
No, we agree. Now that
Okay,
we
that's
agree
it.
on.
That's the only point I had. That was the only thing I was trying to say.
We will agree on that. We agree.
Okay.
I think then the second point I just added would be like my counter to that. If you would want to take that as that, that would be like my cross examine of saying, okay, hey, we agree, but this. So we can take my last answer as that.
Okay. All right then. Well, man, I want to thank you so much for
Thank you
your
so much.
time, industry. I do have to go. I have to get dinner started.
Hey man, like
But
I
I'll
said,
be on
please.
probably on Wednesday at some point if you want to try to come back at that point. Otherwise, send me a DM.
No,
I'd love to
I'm
talk to
gonna
you
come
again.
back. I'm gonna come back, sir. So please, like, let me. I know even if you're busy, let me up, and I'm gonna send you my references. I hope you'll still send me yours, and I would like to have to be able to have this conversation longer, if possible, at some point in time.
Yeah, fantastic, man. I appreciate your time and thank you for being up here. And I look forward to talking with you again in the future.
Same. Yes, sir. You have a nice day.
All right, have a great day, man. Take care.